Hey, welcome back to The Standard. My name is Chance Brown. I'm the broker owner of CB&A Realtors and your host for today. And I am joined by my longtime friend since the 1900s.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, you know, a whole other millennia away. And founder and CEO of Community Impact, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, the largest newspaper by circulation in the state of Texas.
Actually, in the United States.
In the United States.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
you know,
Awesome.
we do.
Yeah.
We just kind of snuck up on everybody.
There you go.
We're like, hey, let's keep printing more newspapers. And everybody else is like, let's print less.
Right. Yeah. So, for those of y'all who do not receive Community Impact in your newspaper or in your mailbox each month, you should reach out to John and tell him he needs to come to your community, or they'll be there soon enough.
Hopefully.
Is the reality, probably.
That'd be awesome.
But honestly, and when it comes in my mailbox, it's the one piece of news that I actually read.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about this in later in the episode because I have a question about it, but I don't always read it because the graphics are so good.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that too.
Yeah, thanks.
But it's the one piece of news because it's stuff that I care about, and it's not slanted in one direction or anything else. So if you get Community Impact, you should definitely be paying attention. If you don't get Community Impact and you're still in an area near where they publish, you can go to their website and it's all there.
Yeah. Contact us. Let us know. You could actually, there's a really cool tool on there. You can go to circulation and put your address in, and it'll tell you if you're in our area or not. And then you could request, to get on the list for when we do come.
There you go. Perfect. So I asked John, not only because he's a longtime friend, we were fraternity brothers in college. We've known each other since 1995.
Yeah, your freshman year. Yeah.
Yeah, 95. Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
We are
I know. I
old.
just did the math on my daughter. My youngest daughter went to prom. I was just doing the math on.
Yeah, ours is this weekend.
It's like, what?
I know.
Wait, I was trying to do the math. Wait. It's a long time
It's
ago.
a long time. Yeah, when they call and they're like, hey, it's your 30th high school reunion. I'm like, no,
What?
that's not possible. That's not a thing.
That's right.
So we have been friends for a long time. I wanted to have him on, not only because he's built literally from his playroom in his house,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Tell a little bit about the founding of Community Impact.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. I as Chance knows, I went to SAM and then I went to work at the Houston Chronicle, which you spent a little time there.
I did.
And my wife and I are from Austin, Jennifer, who also went to SAM, and we wanted to go back to Austin. And so we went back to Austin. I went to work at the Austin Business Journal, which is part of the 41 American City Business Journals. And that was my first management job, but I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I had a personal goal when I turned 30 that I'd be an entrepreneur. And so I had a lot of ideas that weren't very good.
We had one idea that was really good.
Yeah, we were
going to open an
do
insurance
That's
company.
right, together.
Yeah.
See, I knew you were going to be so successful back in college. I just knew it.
Yeah, we were
about
going to
you.
open an insurance company together.
Man, we should. Can you imagine? We'd be killing it.
We
We'd be
would.
on the golf course right now.
I know.
We would be doing
Who
this.
needs a podcast?
We were not very smart. Instead, I'm doing newspaper, and you're being a realtor mogul. But I didn't have a really great idea, and then I started noticing at the Business Journal there was something missing out where we lived. So there were community newspapers,
Right.
but they were writing about stuff we didn't care about. Jennifer and I had a little kid. We just wanted to know. If we're going to get a Starbucks near our house, or there's road construction all over our house. We just wanted to know, we wanted to build a business journal for the average resident.
Yeah.
And I knew from my time at the Houston Chronicle that I knew the mail business, and I knew the advertising business, and so I kind of put a plan together, and I ended up leaving the Business Journal to start Community Impact in the game room of our house with a $39,000 credit card loan. And we just did it, and we were really smart on the front end to how we structured that deal. We got prepayment from our customers. We got long-term agreements, right, so that we knew we'd have cash coming in, and it just worked. Our first edition went out in September 2005.
And by customers, you mean advertisers?
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
Yeah, we'd have. So basically, the idea was, I knew at the Business Journal that getting paid subscribers, but even back in 2005,
Was tough.
Was really hard.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if we just mail it to everybody? And then basically the advertisers share in the cost of the deal.
Yeah.
And I did the math, and it was like $32,000 for me to pay for printing, mailing, and I had one staff member at the time and a couple of freelancers. And our first edition, we gave everyone a half off. So I had $16,000 of revenue in my first edition.
Nice.
Which meant I had $32,000
right.
too. The only thing was just like, did people like it? And we that first edition went out and it was a home run. Like it was unlike anything anybody had seen. It was content with maps in it. It told you what was going on around your home. It didn't have, Johnny kicking the winning field goal. We didn't have any of that, what's called today refrigerator journalism, where you'd cut out a picture of the chess team that your son's on and you post it on your refrigerator. None of that. No. Just kind of business journal
stuff. And then 30 years later, your mom brings it over to your house and you're like, why on God's green earth did you keep all this?
Right.
Yes.
You got third place at this UIL speech debate.
Yeah. Let me introduce you to my weekend this weekend.
Yeah, that's
Every time she comes over, she brings a box.
What's funny is now as time has gone by and our kids have gotten older, I have so many of our friends are like, why don't you do high school sports? They all want me to do. I'm like, I agree that high school sports could be better covered because max preps is not good. But like, no.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Know who you are and do what you do. And so we just started growing, cash flowed everything. We never had to take on any other debt other than we built a printing plant. That was some debt there. Right. But we never had to take any outside capital. And so today we're sitting, we have 40 editions across Texas and all the major cities. And we're sitting really well, I think, for the future of news. Because we started as a monthly print product, which, back then was because we were thinking, if you do a business journal for like a city of Round Rock, which is where we started, how much news?
Right. How much you have to talk about?
Yeah. And so we were like, if we wanted important news, it needs to be monthly. That was lucky. If you look today, almost every news organization would love to have a more monthly print cycle and a digital kind of daily cycle. And but we just got a little bit lucky with our model and we're in really good shape to grow. Nice.
That's awesome. So there are a few things that I want to talk about. As you were talking, I wrote down a couple of other notes. But the one thing that I really wanted to hit on in this episode with you was you've described it as hyperlocal. Like when you're driving local content, because a lot of agents, they want to be the resource in their community.
Yeah.
They want to be the voice of their community, whether that's actually just their neighborhood or their town or whatever that is. How do you choose what to put into that?
Yeah,
content wise, what resonates and what doesn't make the print edition?
Yeah.
Right.
I think people want to know about new businesses opening around them, new restaurants for them to go to. We're able to get different advertising business because we're kind of a serious what's happening in your neighborhood type publication because we cover city council and like we have real reporters that are driving around and they're professionals and they do a great job. And whereas if you're doing it as a realtor, it's kind of like your side gig. So you're doing the best you can to be
the best realtor, but then also deliver all this other content.
Yeah, and from a focus standpoint, it's really, really hard. Right. So I think that's what's been. I think if I'm a realtor that's trying to be to try to give news that's important to the people around them, to me it goes around one kind of key principle that I learned early, and it's people want to feel good about where they live and work, and that's the filter all of our news goes through. Now, we've covered brutally difficult subjects, sex trafficking, masks in schools, all that stuff has been a part of our journalism coverage. But we do it through this filter that even when bad things happen, people want to know that there's things about it being done or that they can participate in what's being done or talked about if they really are passionate about it. So our focus from a newsroom standpoint is, okay, we're going to cover this stuff. We're going to filter it through the idea that people want to feel good about where they live and work and write about difficult subjects, even non-difficult, but sometimes controversial like elections, those kinds of things. We still do it through that filter and it works. We found a way to be a trusted local news source in a very progressive area like Central Austin, and also a more conservative area like the Woodlands. But if you talk to people from both communities, they're going to tell you that they love community impact. And that's not because our tone is different. It's the same, but it's this idea of empathy and curiosity with the idea that, hey, how are we going to approach this difficult subject in a way that honors our role as members of the community? And I think that that's the difference between being kind of somebody that considers themselves a watchdog versus somebody that believes that they're part of the community. How are you going to cover that news? And so if I'm a realtor, I'm thinking, okay, if people want to feel good about where they live and work, okay, what are the things I can include in my newsletter that are going to make people feel good about where they live and work, even if they're looking to move, which wouldn't be a bad thing. Yeah. But that's what I would recommend.
Because the more attractive it is, the more attractive it would be to a buyer.
Totally. And then, when you're ready to sell, you're thinking about all the reasons why your house is so attractive. So all that content's good.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Next thing I was going to ask you about. So I mentioned it in the intro. Sometimes I will sit and read an entire article.
Yeah.
Because it's something that's like genuinely I'm curious about. I want to hear about. In the politics editions, when there's elections, I'll read what each candidate says.
Yeah.
But I think that Community Impact does an amazing job of mixing printed content with graphical content.
Yeah, right.
Because if I don't want to sit and read a whole article, I can get the gist of it by just taking a look.
I think we're the best in the world at that.
So,
and especially at the local level.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's doing the work on maps and infographics about topics that we're doing.
So where did that come from, and how do you make sure it hits what you're really trying to do, and it's not just, I think, Shutterstock for Shutterstock's sake, or what a graphical representation of something just for the sake of having a picture there.
Yeah,
which
I think
I see a lot in all kinds of content. Yeah,
it's hard. Doing great design, even with all the new tools that we have with AI, it's still really difficult to do a map that's not just a screenshot of Google, right? Yeah. And what happens with a lot of our topics like road projects, I mean, we just did this incredible layout for the Woodlands road bonds that what happens is in most news organizations is the entities that are putting on the road construction, they just send them the engineer files. Yeah. And it's like, I can't read those. And so it really goes back to the start. When we started Community Impact, our first story was on the toll roads in Austin, 130 and 45. And so September 2005 was, Google Maps was just barely coming out. Like no one had maps on their phones or anything like that. And so we would see these roads being built with our eyes, and because I was driving downtown Austin at the time, and I just wanted to know, where was it going and how much was it going to cost? But you couldn't find that information. And in fact, one of the fun stories is so we did this huge spread of the maps, and we mapped every entrance ramp and exit ramp. So that's like the most important thing about a road. If you get to a highway,
if it's new,
right?
Where do I get on and off? Is it closer to my house?
Exactly. Can you imagine if you owned a business in that area?
Yeah, for me, everything. It sucked when they did the flyover at 99 and 249. Yeah, because it took my house exit off.
Exactly. So you care about that stuff.
Yeah,
and it was hard to find that information. And so I went to the TxDOT office, and remember, Community Impact was nobody. Nobody knew who we were, and they wouldn't give us their PIO would not give us the time of day. And I understand. I mean, we're just in the game room of my house in Pflugerville. And so I
literally made a press pass off
exactly. No, we're for real.
Really? Borrowed your kid's high school lanyard and just taped over the front.
Press.
Yeah, press.
With my photo from my best photo I could take. But I personally went to that office, and they had a huge engineering map up on the wall, and I just marked it. And I think that we pulled an all-nighter that first edition, put that paper together. We built the whole thing on a little mini Mac. And I think that was in our DNA. We felt like what was out there, how you were getting information, and was always, and it's even worse today, as quickly as people can put the information out there. Yeah. And so if we could take a little bit of time with it and make it appealing visual, then I think people will spend a little bit of time on it and study it. And we see that happening all the time on our stories online. And I mean, people want that kind of information. That's how our brains work now. And we live in, it's the attention economy.
Right.
So
we're all arbiters of attention.
I got very little time, and I'm really, really proud of our team because about 2 years ago, we did something called CI Simple, which basically stole a lot of the really good ideas from Smart Brevity, a book called Smart Brevity, which is the founders of Axios, which is a news site that they kind of take these complex issues and try to break it down. And one of the keys to that book is simple doesn't mean a lack of depth, shallow. Simple does not equal shallow. You can be simple and still deep. And that's our focus. And our team has totally like embraced CI Simple, but that was about 2 years ago. But today in the attention economy, we're even taking it to the next level with our covers. How do we make sure that when that person gets community impact in the mail, the cover is beautiful and so informative, like I want to read this.
Right.
And it's an art.
It is.
And I think we do a pretty good
job. Because I think, and you and I grew up in the same era of news. Mm-hmm. I mean, in college, when I worked for the Huntsville Item, like literally laying out pages in the middle of the night because the bars were my clients. But, you think, oh, here's a bunch of boxes with a lot of type, like the writers were getting paid by the word or something. And no graphics. The Wall Street Journal used to do like the pencil graphics, remember? And then you open up this color thing that comes in your mailbox. And whether you want to spend 5 minutes reading it or 5 seconds looking at a map, you got it.
That's what it's all about. And we just want people to, how much ever time they take with it, to feel like we taught them something or they learned something new about their community, even if it's they got a coupon for their favorite restaurant. Like as long as we could be useful to that reader, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it with quality. You're in the mail. How much junk mail? We did a readership study, and 70% of our readers said, actually 70% of the community, because it was sent out to just the community at large, 70% of the community said that they would miss community impact if it didn't come anymore. 70. What do you get in the mail? What do you get for free besides maybe air?
Well, I can tell you there's nothing that I get in the mail other than community impact that I'm going to miss.
That's right. So I think we just found a way we found a good formula.
All right, let's stick with that thought for a second, because we've talked about how to try to make things local and important to the reader, right? And we've talked a little bit about incorporating graphics that actually mean something.
Yeah.
We oftentimes, like, you got to hit your audience where they are. Things, those are the cliches that go around. But whether you look at typical junk mail readership levels, you look at typical mass email, open and read rates. I want to talk about the idea of putting this in the mail. Where it came from, why we're doing that. And you touched on it a little bit with the graphics on the front, making it something that invites somebody in. But when we talk about delivering content, where's the important place to deliver content? Or is every place important?
I think right now, I don't know about you, but like I've found some social media for me, I'm more useful, and it shows. Like LinkedIn, I do a lot better than X. And I think you got to find where people are really appreciating your content and go all in on that.
Right.
For us, mail, we always, I always believed in mail.
Because I get another community newspaper. And it's tossed in my driveway. And I don't want it. It's a shitty publication. And what I want to do is wait out there for the person that's delivering it and pick it up and throw it back at them. That's what I really want to do. Oh man, you're bringing back some memories. We started our Leander Cedar Park paper. There was a similar paper, and one of our first reader emails was just it was kind of more violent than what you just said, but I think, first of all, I don't think it's delivery mechanism. I mean, if that paper that was delivered on your yard was something that you actually delighted in getting, you would be okay with it. You'd be like, wow, thanks. I can't wait to go pick it up and see what's in there that's useful. Or if it's social media, or if it's email, or if it's whatever, like in the mail. I think it starts with, is your product worth my time? I think it all starts there. And in our business, it's such a low bar
today example, I'm in our newsroom here in Houston talking about headlines. And what was interesting is the journalists are taught a certain way, AP style, that headlines should be written. And the problem is that ship has sailed. And the reason why a lot of newsrooms don't understand why their publications are going down is because we were maturing into a place where just because you're in the newspaper business and you have a community newspaper doesn't mean people are going to read your crap.
Right.
But that's just one generation, right? Like when we're growing up, if the newspaper wrote about it, people paid attention.
Absolutely they did.
So the headlines could be like really boring and dry because people were going to read it. Those days are over.
Oh, I distinctly remember when I would spend the night at my grandparents' house. You know, I've never been an early riser, but when I would get up, my grandfather was always at the breakfast table, cup of coffee in hand, reading the Houston Post. And I mean, he read it cover to cover, including doing the crossword puzzle and the word jumble.
Right.
Like all of it.
So our whole industry has been built upon, and I think it's probably relevant to your industry, right? There's all these things that our industry had been built upon that were true for 100 years plus. And those things are not true anymore, but they're so ingrained in our industry that we think that that's the right way or the correct way, and you have to do it that way. And you just can't. The world has changed.
Yeah. One of our core values is challenge traditional thinking.
Yes.
Because the real estate industry does in fact have a we've always done it that way mentality.
Yep.
And that's real broken.
So yeah, if we were to spend some more time on that, I would flip the table and I would ask you those questions. Like, one of the reasons why you've been successful in building your firm is because of that mentality, right? Is that all the firms you're up against have been thinking about things like we're in the 1980s, right?
Right.
And you decided to build a company where your realtors are thrilled to work here. They feel like that they're important and they feel like they matter.
Yeah.
And you have...
Because they do.
I know. And right. It's all part of your DNA. And because of the other brokerage models thinking like it's 1980s, they're not able to, that's given you an opportunity to build a successful business.
Yeah, and I think it's given us the opportunity to be far more flexible. Mm-hmm. Like we don't change what we do integrally as model and brokerage and all of that, but it allows us to be more flexible in our approach to certain things and to building out services and tools for our agents, support mechanisms, because there's not a giant anchor around our neck from a staffing standpoint or facility standpoint or whatever it is that holds that back.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah.
That's 100%. And there's probably a lot of other stuff you're not.
I mean, there is.
Yeah.
But we could be here all day.
I know.
I mean, yeah.
But that's what people are trying to understand, because there are probably people in your business all the time. How are you growing right now?
Yeah.
And same for us. Like it makes no sense. I get calls all over the country from newspaper publishers, large and small, that are trying to figure out, like, what are we doing and how are we growing when the rest of the industry is shrinking?
And the wild thing is, going back to the Smart Brevity book, is it really is kind of the old KISS, like keep it simple, stupid.
Totally.
Right? And not to call people stupid because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelers, but it really is like you don't have to overthink this. And I think that a lot of times especially when you put a bunch of people in a room, you really overthink the crap out of things that could just be very simply, hey, let's just do this.
Well, what does this matter to the reader?
Yeah.
Why are we writing this story?
Right.
Are we writing it because a PR firm spoon-fed it to you?
No.
Right?
Yeah.
What does it mean to the reader?
Right. Yep. All right. So hit the rewind button, just a couple of bullet points here. And you mentioned something where people are calling and saying, why are you growing the way you're growing? You mentioned that you bought a printing press.
Yeah.
So hashtag print ain't dead, because I've seen it on all of your social media, but you've kind of built this in a lot of ways by doing things that other people aren't. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the opposite in a lot of cases of what people are doing, right? And so let's talk a little bit about that, because I feel like in my industry, there is a follow the leader mentality, right?
Totally.
Like you've got to be on social media all the time doing this video or that video or doing a podcast or whatever that looks like, right? And you've kind of gone across the grade. Like when literally, and I mean literally, not in the way people overuse literally, but actually literally Austin American-Statesman is shutting down their printing press. You're like, you know what? I'm going to build a printing press.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, like, okay, there's a podcast out there, you may have listened to it, called Founders. Have you listened to that? They did the Cade's guy, and he says he's just like us. He was told, no, you can't do it this way. You have to have a more complicated menu. And he says, I love this, and I'm totally stealing it from him because it's the only way I can like explain it in a way that makes sense to me, because it makes sense to no one. But he says, hey, I'm just living my chicken finger dream. And I'm just living my newspaper dream. Yeah. Like, I love the newspaper. I love the tactile, the way we can put maps and printed products, the way we can send it to you. Like, there's no way that we could have built what we built digitally only. Like, there's just no way. Because you know why? You would know to Google what's going on in Tomball. Right. Or, you wouldn't know to Google it if we didn't tell you and push it to you. Yeah. And I'm sure as heck not going to leave it up to Google or Meta, their algorithms. No. So yeah, we the printing, the funny thing about what you said is when we built the printing press in 2016, what's really funny about what you said is, the state's been shutting theirs down, and it's true. Like today, we're one of the few printing presses left in Texas, and there's a couple, but what actually spurred me on, so I was actually in New York City looking at these presses that we were going to buy, and it was like, for us, it was like $3.5 million to buy these, just the presses, everything. That's not include the building or the other equipment, it's just the presses. And I remember praying, I was like, Lord, like, I need a sign that I need to do this. And that very week, while I was in New York City, that's when the Statesman announced they're closing their plant. And what's the different thinking is, okay, everyone in our industry is moving away from this. My thinking was, holy crap, my whole business is dependent on outsourcing.
Right.
It's not my coffee. I'm not talking about my coffee that I outsource or my janitorial services or
somebody else has control of your actual
the
tangible
whole
product.
Business. Yeah. And one more company just shut it down. One more option for me to outsource. Right. And so for me, it was a clear sign that we needed to do it. Now, if God did like crazy things beyond that, like the timing was unbelievable. The printing plant at the Statesman shut down in September or October of 2016. We needed all these pressmen to start in April of 2017. And so it was like 6 months of difference. And listen, I didn't understand when I said yes to the presses, how hard it was to find pressmen. And so those pressmen, they got 6 months severance from the Statesman, went on vacation with their families,
and then rolled right
into CI.
Nice.
It was totally a God thing, and I give him all the credit. But it is an interesting thing to think about as a realtor or as a business person, is the way everyone else is thinking should give you pause, right? Everyone thinks that meta advertising is the best thing in the world. I'm not saying meta advertising is very effective. But if it was God's gift to every business owner, you would never be able to buy an ad. They'd be sold out. You couldn't, right? Advertising is an imperfect science. And so if everyone is saying, do this, you might want to be like, okay, maybe I need to think different. And for me, listen, if we fast forward 20 years from when I left the Business Journal to today, I'll tell you, insourcing printing, bringing that in-house has saved us. It saved us through the pandemic. Do you remember the paper shortage? Mm-hmm. Like if we were like still outsourcing, we would have had real problems. So it's given us an ability to run a business that's allowed us to have efficiencies and given us a lot of ability to like navigate unknown circumstances. Like even as we face, possible tariffs on newsprint, if I was outsourcing that, I would pay full freight for the tariff. But since I own the plant, I can take some of the margin out of the printing company and help my newspaper company out. And that's a huge benefit. And a side note, which is fun for me, it's so fun for me that, we just learned that we're going to be printing all of the business journals around Texas in Austin, Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. And I cannot wait for that first one to go off the press, because for me, it's like, as an entrepreneur, it's like I left a great job that I was scared to death to leave, with everyone telling me I shouldn't do it. And 20 years later, we're helping them function as a business. And it's so fulfilling to see choices that you make that are against the grain turn out to be really wise choices that not only help our business, but we're helping lots of publications around Texas stay in business. And the print product, no one really understands that the New York Times, the most successful news organization in the world right now, would be out of business without their print product. 60% of their revenues still today come from their print product. And so math is math.
Yeah, math, that turns out. You can't mess with numbers.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you can, but only for the IRS.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right. Speed round. Are you ready for speed round?
I'm ready.
Okay, speed round. Favorite business book of all time?
I'm going to go with The Fish That Ate the Whale.
All right.
And I love that book. Do you know what that book is?
I don't.
The Banana King. Oh my gosh. It's so inspiring for me, because I feel like that's who I want to be when I grow up. So it's about an immigrant that basically got into the banana business, selling ripe bananas, and turned out he ate all of them. He became the biggest banana king. And it's a great book because it's inspiring as an entrepreneur to see this immigrant like rise through it, all the challenges that we all face as entrepreneurs. Yeah. But it's also really cool historical stuff, like wars that kind of led to the Bay of Pigs, and like how he was personally connected in his banana trade, and how the bananas worked actually impacted U.S. foreign policy. So it's a fantastic business and historical book.
Very cool. Your favorite piece of technology right now? Tech toy, like actually something tangible, or just software or whatever?
Man, I think right now my favorite tech is playing around with ChatGPT. I just think I still feel like it's a little bit of Music Man. Are you familiar with that musical? Like some people don't even know what that is.
No, I know.
So I still feel like they're selling us instruments that we may not get.
Right.
But I'm really doing a lot of work on that, because I'm certainly interested in how it can help my business efficiency, and and learning how it integrates with data. Like, I'm really curious about that. So I would say that. Yeah.
So we are in the process right now. So I was kind of a crash test dummy on stage at a conference a couple of weeks ago. I actually spoke at, but they brought me up the day before. It's kind of like a test balloon.
Awesome.
On some AI stuff for real estate brokerages. And what we're doing now is taking and building out custom GPTs that take some of the more energy draining tasks from a realtor, or some of the I repeatedly do this and it takes me time. Kinds of things, and building custom GPTs into a library where they can just go in and they can say, okay, I need to prepare all my listing stuff for 123 Happy Street. Type in 123 Happy Street, and boom, it just does it.
I love that. Yeah.
And for me, it's not necessarily like all of our tech stack is built around automation.
Yeah.
Like from head to toe, it's built around automation. And for this, yes, it's automating those tasks. That's important. But the other thing is, if you do something twice a week that takes 30 minutes, and I can give you that 1 hour back. Right. We're talking about 4 hours in a month, right? And 200 some odd hours in a week, or 52 hours in a year. Like,
sounds
that's
pretty
real
good.
Time.
Yeah.
Like, that's giving you almost a full work week back.
That's right.
That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot.
It's so worth
it. So if I
it.
can give you a week of your life back by clicking a button, come on. What are we doing?
What's funny is, and the news people have a little bit of a bias against it, like words, like, are these my words? And I'm like, hey, have you ever like written in a Google document and a little squiggly line comes underneath it and it says, did you mean? Yeah. That's AI.
That's AI. Yeah.
So like, if you've ever done that, because it still as an editor, you're making the choice. No, that's not what I meant. Or, so even as ChatGPT looks at our work and it makes suggestions, we still have to pay attention.
Correct.
And if we can use that energy, that's where our brains are. If we can use that energy for the business, great.
Yeah, and you don't lose the originality. Like that's always been because I like to write.
Yeah, you've always been a good writer. You have.
Thanks. Appreciate that. I enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't use ChatGPT except to cut down because sometimes I get a little long-winded, right?
So you say yeah.
So I'll have it like, hey, maybe
make this concise. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't want to lose the original flavor,
yeah.
right, of what I have to say and how I want to say it. But if I can use it to help optimize it so that it's easier to read for the end user, heck yeah, all day long.
For me, it's been really helpful to gather my thoughts, my strategic thoughts. So like I'm not as good of a writer, a concise as a writer as you are. But I love getting my thoughts in there, and as it gets better to understand who I am, and it gets better with my tone. But I will say this, one trait that humans have is we're really good at telling accents. So like if you meet somebody from New York, you can tell, like, right? Southern belles, you can tell. Like we can kind of tell ChatGPT's accent. Have you noticed?
Well, and there's certain words. So we joke about it in the real estate world because nestled boasts.
Perfect.
This home boasts whatever. Game changing.
Yeah.
Like those are words that constantly when somebody uses ChatGPT to write a listing description, I'm like, yeah, I know that. I know where that came from.
So you got to use your own words. And I don't know about you, but
like mine is trained not to use the word
excellent.
Boast. At all, ever.
And I think they'll get better. But I think right now the only thing I don't like about it is it makes me feel like, it always kind of feels like a kiss ass. John, that is so smart. What you just wrote. Yeah. I love that I'm kind of like, okay.
But then there's a part of me that's like, well,
thank you.
I've watched the Terminator movie, so I'm going to be nice back just in case. Because if we go to war with the machines, I want them to remember me as the guy who said thanks.
Was nice. He didn't call me a kiss ass.
Right, exactly. On a podcast. Yeah. All right, next one up, and you may have already mentioned it. Favorite podcast? You mentioned the Founders.
Yeah,
podcast,
I like Founders. I like Acquired, which is kind of the same genre. I think that those are two of my. I also like. There's a couple of industry specific ones. People versus Algorithms, which really talks a lot about the future of media, and another one called Rebooting, which is also very specific to the future of media.
Okay. Best piece of advice that you've ever gotten? Doesn't have to be business.
Yeah. This one applies to business, and I use it in business. But I love to use it on the golf course more. My grandfather taught me you can only get so wet, and then you can't get any more wet. When on a rainy day out in the golf course, it's pouring down rain. You're soaked. You can't get more wet.
Yeah.
And I think that applies in business too. And especially if all of us.
I thought you were talking about my golf balls because they're always wet. If there's water, mine are going in.
They're there. There's water over there. Yeah. That's why I hit it. No, it's in business. I think one of the things that as entrepreneurs have been through the pandemic, like we've been through, I feel an enormous amount of resiliency right now. Like all this stuff that's happening geopolitically and tariffs, blah, blah, blah. Like I am approaching it like that with my grandfather's mentality. Like you could only get so wet, and you can't get like. There's nothing that's going to be harder for us to overcome in our generation. Yeah,
we've already done the crazy.
Yes. Yeah. It's our Great Depression.
Right.
And we've done it, and we survived. Yeah. So bring on these hard things.
No, I'm super optimistic right now.
Me too.
About all things.
I don't know if I'm optimistic, but I'm resilient. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not worried.
You can't beat me because I've already been through the hard part.
Yes, we'll figure a way out.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. I love it. If somebody wants to find Community Impact online because they don't get it in their mailbox once a month, where would they go? CommunityImpact.com.
We have great, outstanding daily email newsletters that you could get for free that are kind of, if you love Community Impacts Monthly, it's like a daily dose of what you love about Community Impact. And find us online. LinkedIn is a great way to find me if you want to reach out. John Garrett. I think it's John P. Garrett on LinkedIn, and love to connect.
Yeah. Awesome. John, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
everybody.
you.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with another episode of The Standard soon.